Hello, and welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss, and I'm coming to you from Piscinus Ranch in the former lands of the Ama Mutsun. I'm helping to care for the very special vineyard here and learn as much as I can about sheep. If you want to find out why this vineyard is so special and learn about what's going on here at Piscinus Ranch, check out the episode from over a year ago with Kelly Mulville, who designed and manages the vineyard here. Piscinus Ranch is a leader in regenerative agriculture, and they have a sign right next to the vineyard that spells out the principles of regenerative agriculture. I thought it's been a while since I've mentioned these, or I don't even know if they've ever been officially mentioned, so I just wanted to give you those 7 principles of regenerative agriculture. They are, number 1, minimize soil disturbance. Number 2, keep the soil covered at all times. Number 3, keep living plant roots in the soil. Number 4, incorporate and foster diversity of plants, animals, people, cultures, and perspectives. Number 5, avoid chemicals. Number 6, integrate animals. And number 7, build and nurture relationships, especially with creative, passionate people and all life. I mention these because it's great to be reminded of them, but also because if you consider them carefully, you'll see that they extend far beyond agriculture, viticulture. My guest for this episode is Regine Rousseau. Regine is the founder and CEO of Shall We Wine, and she's also the communications director for the Veraison Project, one of the best named programs in wine. Regine explains the work of the Veraison Project, and she offers some really important insights into how we can help make wine more inclusive. I'll be honest, I got a little choked up as I re-listened to her describe why someone might get involved in wine, as it has been narrowly defined, despite it not being friendly to people who look like her. Here's a hint. It's about love. Ultimately, I hope Regine helps you as she helped me fall even deeper in love with wine. Also, Regine mentions this, but I'm repeating it. The Veraison Project is now accepting applications for their Future Leaders program until the end of January. So spread the word or get your applications in and enjoy. Regine, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Adam. And that's nothing I like more than having a good conversation.
It's becoming sort of a rare thing in our world, a
Yeah.
special thing like almost like a craft or a skill that we're losing somehow. It seems like.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
was fortunate enough to sit down with the cast of, or some of the cast members from The Wiz. They were in Chicago last week, and I was invited to have, drinks with them, and 2 of my friends came, and we talked for 2 hours. We
mm,
just talked. And at the end, we all said, wow, when was the last time we had a conversation with strangers and how fulfilling that was for us?
oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's great. Yep, I definitely concur and feel that. Well, can you introduce yourself and the organization that is the cause of us getting together here?
Absolutely. So, my name is Regine Rousseau, and I am the communication director for the Veraison Project. And let me just start by saying thank you for having us on to spread the news.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I heard about you 3 years ago, when I interviewed Nadine Brown, which is a great episode if anybody wants to go back into the library and dig that up. Um, but I was just like, it's such a clever name for what the mission of the project is. And what is the mission of the project? What do you guys do?
Well, we are a 501c3 organization. And what we are doing is we are investing in helping develop future leaders in the wine and spirits industry. And future leaders were really focused to BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, and making creating opportunities for us in the wine and spirits industry.
Right. Yes. And you asked me, well, I should say it's one of those things where because I heard about you so long ago, when you guys got in touch, I was really happy to hear that you were still doing what you were doing, because I know there's been so much upheaval in the past few years with all kinds of organizations and businesses. I was just like, well, this is great. And can you talk a little bit about what kind of projects you do? How do you achieve that mission?
Yeah, so we have three initiatives. The first one is the Future Leaders Program. It was formerly known as the Grantee Program. And this program has shifted a little bit. It's focused to um, people who are in middle management and they're trying to grow their careers or they are starting a business. And under the FLP program, we provide them with a mentor, executive coach. We have learning experiences for them. We support them if they need to get a wine certification. And
Hmm.
then we're next year we're actually taking this particular group abroad so that they have an immersive experience in wine.
That's
That's Go ahead. I'm
that's
sorry.
the Future Leaders Program.
Future Leaders Program. Then we have one that I'm super excited about. It's called the Bridge Program. And the Bridge Program is for those who are earlier in their career. And what the Bridge Program does is help individuals who are facing financial challenges. So, for example, let's say they get a job offer, but the job offer isn't enough to help them with their relocation, or there is a gap between the moment where they receive the job and their rent payment is due. I find this super important because I've known a few young um, professionals who are in that position. So the Bridge program really bridges that gap and helps them make it from not having a job to being able to get to their destination. And then the last one is the apprenticeship program, and that's also an entry level program where our participants have the opportunity to rotate throughout certain jobs in a winery. So they have maybe 3 months doing marketing, 3 months doing winemaking. So at the end of 12 months, they have a real understanding of what it's like to work in different facets of winemaking or sales, any part of the winemaking industry.
Oh, I love that. I think that's
Mhm.
so important. Um, I also, the fact that you're doing the travel abroad, I mean, I remember sitting in like a certification class, wine education class, and the instructors were just like rattling off. As we talked about the wines, they were talking about their experience there. And I was like, how am I ever expected to have the depth of knowledge that these people have without going there? And yet, how would I ever get to all of these places? How would I ever have that immersive experience, which is so necessary to learning? I've learned and think in general. So I think that's fantastic. That kind of thing is you know irreplaceable.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think I've learned so much from being in the vineyard, in the country, speaking to the winemaker or someone in sales for the winery. There's no experience like it. Everything that we learn through WSET or ISG, whatever academy or whatever institution you're a part of, it all comes together when you're standing in that vineyard and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is aspect, this is elevation, oh, this is what the soil looks like. So
Yeah. Oh God. Well, that takes me right to the heart of why I do what I do, which is just to reconnect people to that sense that wine is this agricultural product.
mhm,
And beyond a product, it's it's part of this ecosystem that begins in the earth. And we're so all of us are so disconnected from that for the most part in our lives right now, because there's so few of us who are farmers anymore
yes.
and have that real hands-on connection. And I just find that invaluable to I mean, to life in general, but to especially to the understanding of wine, and really, the importance of what you do in wine really has to center around that. I love the idea of the apprenticeships, mainly because I mean, I've always been a sort of, I mean, I'm rethinking currently. I'm trying to ask some big questions about wine education in general, and I just think that the apprentice route is the way to go, rather than sitting in a class doing blind tasting analysis of wines out completely out of context, again for the same reason of that immersive like reconnection, and actually building like a usable skill-based body of knowledge versus sort of some theoretical party trick to put it
You know,
like on the
I
extreme
agree
side.
with you, Adam. A lot of the work that I do is in my office, and I'm in my office now. And I've been extremely fortunate and have been able to travel and, visit some of my, favorite wine regions. But I feel like, if I was able to go back, because I'm too, I'm in the middle of it, I'm too immersed in my business right now. I would have taken a year to work,
Yeah.
at a winery. I feel like I'm missing a big part of my education because I don't get to touch and feel and smell all of those things that make up wine. And
Mm,
I get bits and pieces of it, but sometimes honestly, my soul craves that, and I
yeah.
think I could take this love affair with wine further if I had those moments.
Well, what is your background in wine? How did you get involved, and how did you get involved with the Veraison Project?
So it's a long story. If I tell you the truth, I will tell you how old I am. But let me. So I actually started working in wine back in 1998, 99. So 98 through 2000, I sold
Hmm.
wine
Okay.
for a distributor in Chicago.
Okay.
So were you even born then, Adam?
Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But
So
thank you. I love
you're
that.
welcome. So that's how it started, and then I left the industry. For some years. I went into sales and marketing and pharmaceutical, medical devices, litigation consulting, and never abandoned my love for wine. Continued to read and drink and fantasize about getting back to it. Fast forward to 2013. I was laid off, which was one of the best things that could have happened to me because it allowed me to stop being afraid and ask myself the question, if I could do anything, what would it be? And I just kept coming back to wine. So in 2013, I launched my business, Shall We Wine. We are a marketing company, and we work with wine and spirits brands, and we help them to grow their reach through television, through video, through events. And so while I was busy building my business, I met Avriel, who is one of the founders, or he is the executive director. And I also met Carly, who is the founder of the Veraison Project. And Avriel told me their mission, and it just clicked with me. And what clicked for me was, wait a minute, we're not only giving scholarships, we're actually putting people of color in a situation where they get the experience they need in order to get job opportunities in the wine industry. And that to me was the key to saying, yes, I want to be a part of this organization.
That's great. Yeah. Was there a back before that when you started selling wine, like was there some aha moment that, or an aha glass that gotcha? Or was it just sort of by virtue of there was a an opportunity, you took it and sort of got curious as time went along?
Oh, yeah. For us wine lovers, there's always a aha moment. Mine, mine was I was doing a study abroad program in Besançon, and it was in France, and I was invited to someone's home, one of the host families, and he just happened to own a wine shop.
Mm.
And, as his special guest, he decided to pull out some bottles of Bordeaux and decided to do a wine tasting for me in
Wow.
French.
Hmm.
And that was for me the moment where, I didn't know I was going to work in the wine business, but I knew that wine was going to be a part of my life. And I fell in love with it right then and there.
That'll do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that sounds kind of magical and romantic.
it was.
Oh, love that. Well, I mean, you asked me, off line, why, I mean, having sort of looked through the podcast and seeing that I do a lot of viticulture and agricultural based topics and ideas, what my interest was in talking with you. And I'm getting to, because I want to ask this question of you, you know, what's important to me is that there isn't a separation between culture and agriculture in my mind. They
Mm,
both reflect each other and they both thrive on diversity. And, this is what I'm really trying to help promote is biodiversity in our cultures. And a diversity of cultures as a way to thrive, as a way to be able to be resilient going into this crazy future that we're heading into. Um, but having said that, what is important to you about the work of the Veraison Project?
So you should just drop the mic after after that line. There shouldn't be a separation between culture and viticulture. What? That's I mean that is so perfect. What's important about the work? You know, this world, even though it arguably was not created for someone who looks like me, has given me so much.
Mm,
And the work what I think is important is that we are letting people who look like us, and when I say us, we have a very diverse board, but Black, Indigenous people of color, we're letting them know, look, there is this world is for you. That your culture has a place here and has had a place historically, even though it may not feel like it, but give us a chance and we'll show you where you fit in. And if you're interested, we're going to show you how to forge your own path in this world. And I it's so what we're doing is to me so important. I did not have that in
mm,
1998, 99 and 2000. I didn't have that. There was no conversation, as far as I remember, about being Black, being Caribbean, and being in the wine world. And maybe there would have been more people who look like me had those conversations been taking place.
mm.
And now we really have a chance, and we're doing the work with other organizations to blend culture and viticulture. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I wonder if you have any sort of personal experiences or obstacles that you encountered because of, just who you are in your pursuit and journey with wine.
So many that you would probably need like a few podcasts.
This would become
But
the Regine episode rather than the Veraison Project episode. I
you
get
know,
that.
but the biggest thing I'll say, I'll answer this way. Because of the way that I look, I have been dismissed.
Mm,
But I've also gotten a lot of support.
mm,
So, what I learned earlier on, because I'm from Haiti, and, you know, I had to deal with adversity, since being a kid with an accent, being bilingual, you know. So by the time I got into the wine business, I knew how to, I knew how to work with those obstacles, right?
ah, yeah.
So, I wasn't surprised when someone, you know, didn't understand that I was the person hired to do the presentation. I wasn't surprised when I was dismissed or looked over. By the time I got to the wine world, I already knew how to deal with those types of people. So, yes, do I have stories and experiences? So many. But
Right.
you know what? I also have a lot of great stories about, people who helped me, who mentored me, who pushed me along and who said, "Hey, how can I support you? I think you're amazing." And I still have those stories.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit about just my sense of that I think we need to reevaluate the wine education that is the dominant wine education right now globally, which still, centers around two English organizations that are basically pay to play certifications that are still very Eurocentric and not representative of a majority of the planet, and still promoting the idea, a very narrow idea and very regionally based idea of wine, not regionally in the sense of a diversity of regions, but a single region, the European region. And and this has been something that I've come to realize, and even just as an American, it's off-putting. Even though if I go far enough back, I have ancestors who came from Europe. And as I was telling you, I started to think about somebody who doesn't even have that tacit connection to Europe, like how off-putting is the wine industry, and why would you even want to be part of it? I mean, we talk about wanting to be more inclusive, but like, what is the motivation for somebody who who shares who doesn't share that cultural background and is somewhat excluded from it in the wine industry itself?
That's a
And you gave
great
a great answer.
question. Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I've had this conversation with so many of my colleagues, and here's how I'll answer this. There are many. What am I thinking? What's the word I'm looking for? Disciplines. There are many. I know there's a better word, but it's escaping me. There are many things that we can look to and say, well, the way that this is marketed or presented isn't friendly
Yeah.
to people of color, right? But when you fall in love with it, you fall in love with it. I
Yeah.
think about art, and even though I could think about, many galleries that did not accept African American artists or African American or collectors, but fell in love with art, and it is a part of my life, right? It is a part of who I am. I had the same experience with wine. I got that bug, I was like, oh wow, this is going to be a part of my life forever. And maybe if I wasn't so thick skinned and hard headed, I would have done something else. But that's what love is, right? You find
Yeah.
this thing that gives you joy, pleasure, that you feel like is so much a part of your soul, and
Mhm.
you embrace it, and you embrace the hardships of it. And I imagine that that's what it is for so many people who have not been embraced in this world. It's just what
Mm,
we love.
mm. That's a great answer. Um, what, having said that, what can we do to make it easier for more people to be able to fall in love that
Ooh.
way?
Um, I think we have to stop. I think we have to, it's not just about how we educate about wine. I think it's about how we market wine.
Mm.
It is grape juice, right? Really delicious grape juice.
Yeah.
Yeah, really like interesting grape juice. But it's also this thing that's supposed to bring people pleasure. You don't have to have an accent to enjoy a great bottle of champagne, right? All
Yep.
you have to do is have a desire to experience the land, the culture, the people. And I think that if we stop just being so um, impressed with ourselves impressed with what we know, and we understand that this is a product about joy, a product that makes people's lives better, and we market it that way, then we'll have more people coming into our world. And it's for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. um, yeah, it's funny. Wendy, who's my wife, we talked at one point about like if we were going to describe, because we have a winery, so we're both co-owners of Centralis Wine here in South Central Los Angeles, and we were trying to figure out like what would be the best way if we had a movie poster that represented our winery as a brand. What would that movie be? And we came to Love Actually, because I
Mm.
think basically you just encapsulated it. It's like, we wanted it to be this thing that just you came away feeling a sense of hope and connection to your fellow human beings, and that love is possible and it's actually the dominant force in life.
I love that. I love that movie. Um, yeah, and that's what it is. And not everyone has to love it, but it's here for you whenever you're ready.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It might be a little cheesy for some people, who knows what, but every once in a while you might have a guilty pleasure of, watching it around the holidays,
Exactly.
or something. But, well, with the Veraison Project, what have you seen in the folks who have taken advantage of the programs? Like, do you have any stories or successes that you can talk about? I just would love to get us like some, a visual of what's going on in
Yeah.
with the
Thank you
folks who,
for
yeah.
No, I'm sorry to, yeah, but thank you
No,
for
no.
asking that. I think, first of all, there are about 20 board members, and we're all involved working in the wine and spirits industry in some way. So when I say this is like a dedicated team that is like running like a well-oiled machine, I have to say that. So I think, you know,
That's
before
great.
I talk about, the recipients of the Veraison Project, like the group who's behind it is super excited and
Mm.
working really hard to make sure that we are delivering for the future leaders, for everyone that's a part of our organization. So I find that super exciting.
Oh,
Um,
that's great. If
you
I
know,
can just interject, I mean, I
yeah,
think like for anybody who thinks it's dry to talk about board members or boards, an executive staff or anything like that, I want to just interject that, I think one of the best definitions I've ever heard of regenerative agriculture is that it's about relationships. It's about regenerating relationships, actually, and those are human as well as extra human relationships. And without having passionate people who are doing the work and want to do the work and believe and share values about the importance of the work, you can't have regeneration, and or it's just going to take a lot longer. The soil microbes can only do so much. They really need the help of passionate, value driven people who care and who want to do a great job because they love what they're doing and find joy in it. So I think that's great that you started there.
yeah. And then, I have had a chance, like one of the board members that I work with closely is Talia Suggs, and she was part of the apprentice program last year. And she has just talked about how her work, like how much she understands the business of wine, so much more than she did before that program. There was another with the Bridge program. I believe that we supported nine scholars last year, and that was about $23,000 that we were able to contribute. So, in
Oh,
terms of like making an impact, being able to talk to the scholars and talk to um, the participants, everyone is like, yes, this is making a difference, because it's not just about getting money, it's about getting money when I need it for a job opportunity, or it's about putting me in a place where I can get the skill sets to get a job.
Gotcha. Love that.
Well, let me add this, if there's a
Yeah.
way to bring this in. To go back, I don't know of any, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but I don't know of any programs like the apprenticeship program where you get this 1 year job rotation, where you are working in marketing, viticulture, winemaking, finance, operations, so I just don't know of anybody else doing that. And
Mm.
the few apprentices that I've spoken with, they've been like, wait a minute. Now I understand the connections between all of these different departments that takes a wine bottle from the winery to the shelf,
Right.
to someone's home.
Yeah, that's great. I,
Mhm.
I think what I wanted to ask was, do you have any sort of statistics
Mhm.
that might be instructive or shocking for the wine industry to hear about itself that inform some of the work that you do, why there is a need?
Wow, I know that that exists. I just honestly, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. And I do have our deck here, and I don't have anything that speaks to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just
Except,
curious.
well, maybe, and I can say this, maybe it's the percentage that there's only 1% of wineries are owned by African Americans. I mean, I don't know if our work will um, create winery owners, but I imagine down the line that it could,
Right. Yeah.
you
That's
know?
really interesting. Yeah. Now, as you know, I mentioned my own interest in sort of revising and revolutionizing really wine education,
Mhm.
especially in the US, in America in general, but in the US specifically. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about how we could make it better. Like, did you have any of your own formal education in like whether it's the Court of Psalms or the Wine and Spirits Education Trust or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. So I studied with the International Sommelier Guild, where
Okay.
I
Yeah.
did their level one and two, and then I level three with WSET, Wine Spirits Education Trust.
Okay. Yeah.
How do we make it better? Wow, that's such a loaded question. So because
It
you know,
is.
because I have written for a few publications, I've been involved in conversations with wine writers that talk about making the language of wine more inclusive. So, to give you an example, you might say banana because of your culture. I have notes
Yeah.
of banana. Because of my culture, I would maybe say I have notes of ripe plantains,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And understanding that, because of our backgrounds and what we eat and the smells that we are accustomed to, we're going to approach evaluating a wine differently.
Yeah.
I think that that is a starting point. But in addition to that, I think it's who are the teachers, right? I
Yeah.
remember being in a class where I smelled come on to not like molasses a
Mm.
lot. And it was my first time in a formal wine tasting situation. And it was like I would pick up molasses. And the instructor was like, what in the world are you talking about? Right. And, but they would say something like, some other sweet notes. Right.
Right. Right.
And then later on, the more educated I became, the more I realized, I wonder if these particular wines were taking me back to my childhood,
Sure.
where molasses was very common for me.
Yeah.
So I think the way, we have to have a common language. And when we talk about wine, I understand that the common language is Eurocentric. And I do believe that that has to change, right? That has to evolve. But I think the way to start is educating the educators
Hmm.
and letting them know that, wait a minute, pay attention to
Yeah.
the student who describes it a little bit differently.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I have two thoughts about that. One is I wonder how important it is for us to actually describe wine. Just period. Like why is that something like yes, I get that it deepens your appreciation, it sort of brings it into focus and, it focuses your attention to on it and but does it help with the enjoyment of wine to sort of parse out, a couple dozen different flavor and aroma notes, and to be scored higher, the more of those you can sort of list or make up, and being able to, and or does it only help us to sort of identify a wine blind? And what is the value in that skill? I mean, what is the real value in that? I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know what the real value in that is. Other than, I don't even know. Honestly, I just don't know. I don't know how that has
Well,
helped me appreciate. But yeah, please,
no,
I would love to hear your thoughts.
part of me, a big part of me agrees with you. I think it's important for a certain segment of the industry. I think of the master sommelier and how she or he is tested. Their incredible ability to, pick up on some nuances, taste the wine and be so connected to the vintage and what happened in that vintage that they can identify the wine. I am not a master sommelier. I'm so far removed from it. But I imagine the way it's told on TV that this is something that's important for them to do. I think it's a higher understanding and connection to the product. I don't think that the consumer needs to do that, right?
Right.
And I think that because the consumer sees this image of smell the wine, break down the soil, talk about these things that they don't even have the basic understanding of, I
Yeah.
think it separates them from it. And I think that there is a journey, right? And I think the journey is appreciation, love, joy is where it
Mm,
starts.
yeah.
And then if you want to go further in your journey and be able to blind taste and know about these nuances, then that's welcoming as well. But the issue is that we make it one or the other. If you're not at that high level, then you're not welcome into this world. And I think that that's what's
Right.
problematic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I do tastings of my wine with people, they'll be like, well, what should I be smelling? Right? Like that's a question that I've gotten,
Yeah.
almost as many times as I've done a tasting. And I love it because it always gives me this opportunity to be like, well, I don't think you should be tasting anything other than what you do smell and taste. And I actively avoid saying anything that will inceptionize you because I mean the way I put it is I was like your grandmother cooked different food for you than my grandmother cooked for me, I'm sure. And so we have different sense memories. And so much of these sensual experiences are subjective. Like they're literally like these connections to like for you it was molasses. But if I didn't grow up in a culture with molasses, I would have, it might be maple syrup or
Yeah.
something, like that. It might be, like a caramelized onion or something, like it could be any number of sense associations that are similar and nuanced that overlay each other. And to say that one is correct and this is like the official way in, yeah, it seems very troubling. I don't know if you've noticed this, but one of the observations that I've had, you know, from pouring for people, from introducing people to wine, maybe for one of their first times, or or introducing them to a sort of a way of thinking about wine for the first time, is that people have this sense of they can get it wrong. that you can
Mm.
get wine wrong. And I think that sense, for some reason, is embodied in the wine culture that we've put out there. When I say we, I mean that has been put out there. I mean, I'm actively trying not to put it out there. But this sense that you can get it wrong seems to be completely antithetical to the sense of finding joy and finding love in that experience, because it's like, oh, it's scary, it's more fear based, and it's more like, did I get it right? It's like more like a test that I have to pass, rather than like an immersion into a sensual pleasure experience. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but those are
No,
just some of the things I've observed.
I'm shaking my head. Yes, yes, yes. And, I had this conversation at an event that I did on Saturday. And, three of the women said, "Oh, wine is so hard." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I was like, "Are you studying for a certification? Because, yeah, that's hard." Um, and they were like, "No,
Right.
it's just really hard." And I was like, "All you have to do is taste it and say you like it or you don't like it. Let's just start there." It's like when we talk about the smelling of wine, right? To me, we smell it because we want to make sure the bottle's good, and we know that okay, there's really a small percentage of flawed wines out there anymore. So I ask, when you smell it, does it make you want to taste it?
Mm,
Right? Kind of like
yeah.
when you smell food, right? You
Yeah.
walk into a restaurant and you're like, "Whoa, I'm hungry. This smells delicious." Or you may walk in, you may smell something and say, "Oh, this is not it's not jiving with me," right?
Right.
So I think that we have to change, the language of how we speak to consumers, and just let them know that this is something that you are meant to enjoy or not enjoy. And if you don't enjoy, there's so many more that you can try. You will find the one. But let me go back to something that you asked earlier about my work at the Veraison Project. And I think that this is part of what we are doing as an organization by opening up the wine and spirits world, right? By making it inclusive. The conversation that you and I are having, Adam, there will be more of these conversations
Hmm.
because we're bringing in people with different backgrounds. There are going to be BIPOC leaders in the wine industry that want to go the traditional route, right? And that's okay. There are going to be those who want to go in and express themselves in a very different way. But the more diversity that we have, the more these conversations are going to take shape, and the language is going to change because the language will have to be more inclusive.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I hope. And you also make me think about, I mean, we're talking about wine, I think mainly with the sense in our heads right now as grape juice, as you said. But then, one of the diversities that I really try to promote is the sense of, is wine just grapes? Like, does it have to be just grapes? Is that too narrow of a definition of wine? I mean, I think of,
Mm.
I have like some friends from Belize, so you might, some Caribbean influence there as well, and they're making wine from cashew fruit,
Yeah.
and that's, and some other like this. I don't even know the name of it, but it's like a berry that grows on a tree that looks crazy, and
Kenep is, I think it's I don't know what it's called there, but I think in Creole it's Kenep because I've seen it's almost like has a hard shell, right?
oh,
And it
I
was,
don't know. I
oh,
haven't.
okay,
I've
okay,
only seen pictures, so yeah, I have no
okay.
essential. I've only seen pictures and tasted the wine. Very dark berry, and yeah, and so I mean, my point is just, when does cashew wine get included in when we talk about wine and study wine and start to think about, like, this is a representation of terroir, especially in Belize,
Hmm.
or wherever it is that, what is the local thing that grows in your region that is becomes this really unique and beautiful expression of that place, of that culture that you come from, that isn't necessarily grapes, because Yeah, because that might not be where you're from,
You know,
especially if you live in like New Mexico or something like that. You know.
no, that's an excellent point. I've been seeing, and I haven't, done a deep dive, but a lot more articles and social media posts about, the relevance of fruit wine.
Yeah.
And you're right. Again, it's this idea that I have in my wine that it has, or in my mind that it has to be Venus vinifera, and that's it, or die,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more and get involved with the Veraison Project, how can we do that?
So go to our website,
All right.
theverationproject.com. You can find us on social media, and we're super excited. I have to mention this, that January 1st, we will be accepting applications for our Future Leaders program. So
Oh, fantastic.
follow
When
us.
is that again? What is the
January
date?
1st is the
January 1st.
date that the applications will be accepted, and all of the details will be posted on the website. And we just ask everyone to spread the news because we want to have a really great group for 2024.
Fantastic. I love that. Um, did we miss talking about anything important about the Veraison Project that we should cover? I want to make sure I didn't neglect to give you the opportunity to say anything important.
No, I appreciate that. I'm looking at my notes. I mentioned Carly Mayer, who's the founder, and Avriel McKenzie. They don't want to be mentioned, but I mentioned them. You mentioned the Future Leaders Program, Bridge Apprenticeship. No, I think we did good, and we mentioned that the applications are going to be open soon.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for doing this. Thanks for coming and spending your time here with me, but also thanks for the work that you're doing with the Veraison Project. I love what you're doing, so I'm glad that you are.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity, and let's stay in touch.
Definitely.